right? Like when you hear Beethoven, you understand that at some point this was the shit. You know? At some point, Beethoven was pop music of the time. And it was so good that it's transcended time. You know what I mean? So you hear Beethoven, you hear a symphony, you hear, an orchestra play this music that has transcended, that's very effective. And then you say to yourself, oh, okay. Like I understand that this is beautiful. On my spare time, I want to enjoy things like this. The reason why a lot of people are heavily invested into politics, if it's not something that directly impacts their life, like women with their reproductive rights or LGBTQ people with their fundamental rights to existence, and war, or like, you know what I mean? If it's not something that's like very audience capture, high frequency, very loud, things. A lot of people are just trying to get through their life so that they can literally enjoy art, so that they could take their family to Disney, so that they could go to the beach and take a photograph and have memories of and have watch movies. Like a lot of the core memories that people have are all surrounded by and or directly contributed to like the potency of that moment because of art. Yeah. And me as an artist, I understand that. I actually had somebody tell me just 2 days ago, actually, they were like, whenever I think about you and I think about your personality and how good you are at like X, Y, and Z, like I always think that you would make a great politician. And that's what they tell me. And I've it's not the first time that people have told me that. And I have, in the past, I have reacted to that with a little bit more like a lot more like
hesitancy.
I push back on it a lot. Like, oh my God, I don't want to be like, that's so horrible. I don't want to be a politician. I want to be a politician. But I choose to kind of look at it in a good way. But like, a lot of the reason why I don't see myself as that is because I just don't think that's my function.
Yeah.
Whether I'm good at it or not, whether I end up being remembered by it or not, like my function as a human being is much more fulfilling if I fill a lot of my time with trying to produce art. Yeah. And because I try to produce art and I critique it and I think about it a lot, I can look at modern art, contemporary art, old art, Baroque music styles, but anything that has some sort of art in it.
Yeah.
I can look at it and I can contextualize it. I can put some historical significance to it. I can understand craftsmanship. I can understand hours and technique. I'm well versed in that world enough that I can sit there and then I'm also like meta, like 30,000 foot view. I'm like, why do artists do that? Is so that people can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Art does a really good job of describing the human condition without
does.
having to tell you, hey, this is the human condition, right? It's the same way why like some people that work like really, really high caliber at what they do, comedians, musicians, like when you are watching an expert do what they do, what you feel it inside you. You know what I mean?
I mean, even we were talking about this earlier about the Olympics.
And
that is a form of artistry to hone in on a skill set that 0.001% of the people who even do it manage to get to that level. They manage to get to that level. It is incredibly inspiring, and there's a lot of people who I'm seeing a lot of posts about people talking about if you're like the parents letting their kids watch the Olympics or having their little daughters watch the Olympics or whatever, especially I see a lot about women and
they're killing it right now,
and people talk about like, oh, like why, like they'll say like POV or like, why are you letting your kid watch this or whatever, and it's just because they're like, yeah, because my kid hopefully will one day look at these women and say, wow, like
I can do that.
Like I could do just that. I could be the next Simone Biles. I could be the next person to reach these different goals, and I can transcend these limits that have been put to me. And that's what art is.
Correct.
That's entirely what art is. Art is all about, but then artists don't go into their artistry trying to do that though. Like there is something that is
a lot of times it's just like
a lot of times a lot of it is just they want you to hear a message that resonates so heavily with them, and a message that is so fundamental and visceral for the human experience that everybody, no matter what walk of life you come from, you're like, this makes sense to me. You're watching these things, you go to the art museums and you're like, so people back in fucking Rome back in the days used to feel this way too. That's fucking wild.
That's crazy.
They had dogs too. That's wild.
Humans,
yeah, we're all human. Like this human experience, it's so humbling because sometimes your world feels so big and small. Big because it's just you. It's just your world. No matter what, it's just your world and everything that's happening inside your head. And then small because you're like, I'm so fucking minuscule, like it doesn't matter. But then you tie the human line back together and you realize that from the start of time, even in its most basic human nature form, when you see animals do the things that we do and you're like, that shit's wild. Like that, and then you see throughout time people making art about it. Yeah. So like the earliest art forms are like caveman paintings, correct?
Yeah. Arguably,
and I remember
there's some pottery and stuff that you could
pottery,
technically consider.
Yeah, but back in
but
the
it's
day,
probably tools. They're probably not looking at it like the function of those things are probably looked at as more like tools. It's more utility.
Yeah, but it does. I was very heavily influenced by art history classes in college, and because I studied anthropology, I studied a lot about cultures and especially the beginning of art of humankind. So we talked a lot about art, and we talked a lot about how like literally they're the most
technically. I'm gonna get run nerdy. Technically, the very first art form that has ever happened was dancing.
Yes.
Technically.
Yes. And in fact, the tangible art.
Because we all move.
Yes.
Right, like we all move and we all show excitement with movement.
Yes.
We all show like
that is true.
Sadness and happiness with movement. So I mean, like in the earliest of days of civilization, one can conclude that if there was some sort of village somewhere, that if there was a moment of extreme elation for the village, there was probably a lot of movement and a lot of like communication through movement.
And on a slightly relative note is there had to be stuff like that because there was rituals before even
fucking witches and shit.
No, that's not where I was heading.
Pagan rituals. Sacrifices.
I was talking about.
We are Aztecs after all.
No, but like I was talking
we're not on the same page?
No, we're not on the same page. But I can fuck what you're saying. Yes, we are. Either way, I think overall the connection that we build through art throughout time has been so crazy, like so much so that it's expand all the way through, obviously till now, and then specifically in our generation, art. With social media becoming or being what it is, they've expanded forms of art because video and the type of expression that you have. And I was filming earlier for the look that I have right now, and something that I as an artist, I don't really consider myself an artist, but I'm sure to some degree somebody might consider me an artist.
I would say so.
Yeah. I to me it's hard to do that, but either way, that's a different conversation. But I was telling myself that now that I'm going to be posting things on YouTube again, or posting recreations of makeup looks or different creativity outlets that I want to have, I want it to solely be about creativity outlet. Because I realized, and something that happened is because I grew up in the 2016 YouTube era, which is a super common thing for people to talk about nowadays, because they remember how it used to be and how weird like influencers became from that point on.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing it and being like, I don't want to be that though. Like I want to be somebody who posts their creativity and has an outlet for all of their creative endeavors. But I don't want to be an influencer. Like I don't want somebody to look at me and think that I'm influencing their life in some way outside of just being somebody who likes art and creates things and uses the little bit of knowledge I have about art to influence my life. Not your life, but my life with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a video I just posted on my YouTube, I very specifically said on there, I was like, I'm not going to be talking that much on my page because I want it to be about what I'm doing versus what my thought processes are about certain things. I want it to be about the technicality of the creative endeavor that I'm taking on. So like if it's about makeup, like let's talk about the technicality of makeup. Let's talk about why this works for you, why this doesn't work for you, things like that. But I don't necessarily want to sit there and talk about political views. I don't want to sit there and talk about the environment that we're in social media.
That's why we started posting the monologues.
Yes.
Because we wanted to kind of like branch out into that kind of world too, which by the way is so much harder than just setting this up and talking.
Oh,
it's
dude,
so much fucking harder.
Even just to do.
I mean, I prefer it, but like, dude, it's so fucking hard.
In terms of creativity, it was rewarding.
I got music coming out too, though. So
yeah, your album?
Yeah, well, an EP. It's
excited.
gonna be fun.
I'm excited because I like a lot of the songs that you haven't come out with. There's a lot to be said about those little snippets that we make, those little shorts that are made. They're funner to make because of the fact that you are very much like creativity is you got everything at your disposal in that aspect. But there's so much more work and taxing because you have to tap into that creativity, but then you also have to tap into the marketing side of it all and like marketing yourself and marketing your creativity. That's hard. Like, it's really difficult. And to me, it's crazy to think about how we get instant gratification for our creativity endeavors. Georgia O'Keeffe didn't get that. Pablo Picasso didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like these things, like these people, like it's crazy to me to think about how like artists back in the day, just their entire careers.
Yeah.
Some of them after they died didn't get recognized.
Have you seen the movie A Night in Paris?
Is that about
It's the movie with Owen Wilson. I can't see Owen Wilson and not think of Shanghai Noon, but like but like he's just a regular dude. So I'm just like,
I can't see Owen Wilson and not think about cars. So it's I can't not hear him and be like, I could just be like little red car.
But yeah, he essentially like he's having. The story is a cute story. The story is like he and his wife are going through problems. They probably should get divorced, and they're in Paris, and she's, I think they do a good job of making her not seem naggy. Like, it's not like she's being naggy, but like he wants to explore the city. He wants to see the cultural significance of the city, and she just wants to do other shit. But so like he goes out at night one day, and he realizes that every time he goes out at night, if he gets picked up by this specific taxi, that he goes back in time. And then like, so he ends up in Paris at these bars that all these writers and painters and like all would hang out at.
I've heard,
and he meets them. He meets them in real time. Like he actually has conversations with them. He travels back in time because Paris has always been the mecca of art at that point up until New York happened, right? But like, so he goes back in time and he spends all night and he meets like Salvador Dali. He meets like Hemingway. He meets all these people that were in Paris around the same time, and like he asks them questions, and he's like picking their brain. He's like, oh my god, I can't believe this is real. He thinks it's a dream at first. He goes back to his place. He wakes up. He goes to like the museum where like all of the places are, and like the curators like talking about the art, and he's like, I don't think that's like, and he'll like give input, so he like knows that he was actually talking to them, because there's no way he would have known that information otherwise. And then he keeps doing it. He spends like a week, and then he falls in love with somebody from the past, and like and so it's a cute story, but it goes back to the point you're making about like we get instant gratification because of social media, but there was a point in time, just to speak to the potency that and the deep love that artists have for their craft. Artists that are really serious about what they do are not, they might care about instant gratification, but they have a deeper impulse.
Yes.
They have like a deeper...
Yes, it's about the art.
Yeah. They have a deeper thing that they're trying to get out. You know what I mean?
Yes. Because like if you think of people like Frida Kahlo, Dali, all of these like people,
even writers, Neruda,
like all of these
that
people,
man's words, bro.
they even Coelho, like all these different artists like that are authors, you know, actual like, you know, painters and sculpturists and all these people who created art. They did it for the sole reason of letting their beautiful brains create beautiful art, and never for I mean, I don't doubt that there have been people who did it for the fame and the glory, but
sure,
because it's such a one-off thing. Being an artist does not get you fame and glory.
Nah, bro. It's a 96% unemployment rate.
Exactly. Like you have to be, there's a reason why they call it the starving artist in LA, where the people are like getting only slightly little gigs here and there. Yeah. Like it's not. Yeah. It's not even like this like lucrative thing that actors, you can get into
like
right
even
away.
The actors that have gotten good jobs before, like they still struggle to get new jobs.
Just because you got a good movie and got a good thing, like doesn't mean that you're gonna get. You have to become a household name for that, and it's really hard to do that. And the only time that you get to enjoy your household name is when you're freaking old. So like, there's very few people who get to enjoy their household name status being young.
Very few.
Very few. Now, in our generation, is there a couple of them? Yeah. Probably. But I would argue that it's hard for them because like, even for people like, for instance, like Daniel Radcliffe, he was a household name for a while because of Harry Potter. But the minute he stopped doing Harry Potter, you could not get that man to work in another... Not that he wasn't working. He was working, but it didn't work for him. Like,
bro, the work he's doing now though is so much better.
And I was about to say, like, but that was back like right after Harry Potter, and then now he's doing plays.
Have you seen the movie that he was in?
He's doing really well.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie that he was in where he's the writer? He's the gay writer.
No.
I forgot.
It was like a Sundance.
No, I think it might have been at Sundance, but it's really good.
Yeah,
it's really good. I'll send it to you. But it's like a deep, like really nerdy, very like if you know, writers kind of shit.